So welcome to another episode of the Trailblazers Experience podcast, where we have candid conversations with women sharing their career journeys. My guest today is Lucy Jeffrey, who is the founder of the brand Barekind, the bamboo sock company that saves animals. Welcome, Lucy. How are you?
Tola. Oh, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And this is so exciting because I feel like I'm now inundated. Thank you, Meta, with ads showing me socks.
I'm doing something well. It's working.
Exactly. It's working. My phone listened. I've been around you enough. I think we've met like twice so far, at different events. And here we are talking about a business that you started all those years ago. And I really just want to delve into just the early years of how you transition from the corporate world to launch a brand that combines fashion with a message behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's quite a random journey. People say, why did you start a sock company? How did you lead here? And I say, I used to work for a bank. And they say, so you've not done anything in this industry? You're not even in fashion. You weren't even in e-commerce. I said, no experience other than what I've gathered here. So yeah, it was 6 years ago. I was working for HSBC. I was on their grad program. I knew it wasn't really for me. It was fine. Do you know what? It was quite fun. I quite enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but I knew it wasn't really for me. And that's also quite a dangerous position to be in, because when a job is fine and it's okay and you kind of enjoy it and it's well paid, you're very unlikely to leave it, I feel, because I didn't hate it. But I did start the company whilst I was on the grad scheme. It was a side project. It wasn't even a side hustle because I didn't really think it would go anywhere. It was just a small thing I was playing around with. So the business started as other products, actually. So I started with stainless steel reusable straws. So this was in 2018. There was a lot of this going around where we were saying no to single-use plastic. I think the EU was starting to ban the use of single-use plastic in a lot of industries. So that's where I started, and I kind of played around with a few different products. The socks came around a couple of years later when, because there was a video of going around the internet of a turtle with a straw stuck up its nose. Turtles became a bit of a mascot for us. So I was using them in my marketing, like stop using single-use plastic. This is what happens to the animals. So I really wanted to give back to the turtles because I felt like I was using their imagery a lot. So the whole point of it was to donate some of the profits to the turtles. But the straws didn't have any turtle imagery actually on them. So it led me to thinking, okay, well, I'll just do a limited edition run of some turtle kind of product. Started with socks, just felt like it was a good, cute product to do. I thought, people will love this. I like getting socks at Christmas. And my customers loved them. And they were like, what's next? I want penguins. I want orangutans. So I brought out a few more socks. It became less of a limited edition. It became more of like, okay, I'm actually selling these socks now. This is happening. But then 2020 hit everyone like a truck. And so I was working from home. I realized that I didn't want to go back to the office particularly, and came to the end of 2020. And I think just the nature of COVID and how it affected everyone, it was kind of like a light bulb moment that I was like, literally anything can happen. Like, we have no control over anything in the world. So I really should just try something different and really roll the dice here. So I quit my job at the end of 2020. It was start of December. Quit my job just before Christmas. I left, and then that was 3.5 years ago now. Haven't looked back, and now I have a sock company, and that's the kind of story of how I have got here. And there's a lot that has happened in between, but it's gone fast, real fast.
And what's the revenue, just for the audience, of Barekind at the moment? So from startup to where you are sort of now.
Yeah. So to give you the context, so 2020, our revenue was 20K. That's it. Like, because we shut the business down. My mum was doing my shipping. Like, I wasn't letting her out of the house. So that's how small we were back then. So I quit my job based on that, which really was rolling the dice. And then 2021, we did 200K revenue. 2022 was 500K. 2023 was 540K, but much more profitable. So actually we did some radio ads in 2022, which were incredible for growth, but very expensive. So we didn't do them in 2023, but we had kind of flat revenue, but much more profitable. So that's the kind of like level we're at. We keep saying we're aiming for 1 million this year. I reckon we're really on track for 750 this year, a stretch goal of 1 million, but we'll see how it goes. It's summer as we're recording right now. So we're in quiet season. So it's tough for us right now. But when Q4 comes, like everything goes bananas.
I mean, that's amazing. And obviously, the bamboo socks are unique for the audience if you go on the website as well. So they're not only providing comfort, you've talked about the story of how you're contributing to saving animal lives, and, an innovative idea that's got really good margin behind that as well. And the fact that you just decided to take a leap of faith of actually you'd started a side project that started off with straws that morphed into something else. Sometimes that's how it is as an entrepreneur, where your first idea probably isn't the last idea or the best idea, but it sets the catalyst, isn't it, for you? If we talk backwards, because obviously you worked for a bank. When you were growing up, now in hindsight, do you think there were any foundations or fundamentals now when you think about it, connecting the dots, that sort of said that's given you the skills or the toolkit to help you with your business now?
It's really interesting looking back on it now, because I mean, even when I was running the business still at the bank, and people would come to me and say, "When are you quitting?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want the risk. Like, I really don't see myself running my own business." However, now I would really struggle to work for someone else again. Like, I love this. Whether Barekind is it this forever? I don't know. I like the idea of there's other stuff going on, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But there's a second business that we've started off the back of it as well. So, but looking back, like my parents weren't entrepreneurs. My dad worked for British Gas, and he joined them when he was 16, and he still works for them. My mum raised us and then was working for a preschool. So there's not really anyone that I followed when I was growing up that was in this space, which is very interesting, which is possibly why I came into it a bit later. I say later, like I guess I was about 23, 24 when I started the business, but I know there's some entrepreneurs that are like, I knew I would be an entrepreneur from day dot. But there was a few like things that I did, like looking back, I remember, and this is actually such a cute story considering what I've done now. Me and my neighbor would find stuff in our houses, stuff that you just collect, like dust collectors, my dad calls them. They're just kind of tap that's like you've collected over the years. We'd collect them up and we'd sell them on the street and donate the money to WWF. So like, which is quite funny that this is now what I've like ended up in. And that story came to my brain like not too long ago. I remembered that we used to do that just as something to do on the weekends. So I've always been into like the animal side of it. And I did try and, I wrote a business plan to my dad to try and convince him. I had this rabbit growing up called Bryn, and he was very cute. And I tried to convince him through a business plan that it would be a good idea to breed him. And my dad was like, absolutely not. We're going to end up with rabbits everywhere. So I think there's been like a theme of like animals in there, but there's nothing other than those two things that I thought, yeah, I'd definitely be. I loved business at school. I was very interested in business studies, but I went on to study biology and then went to a bank. So it was all kind of higgledy-piggledy, and I've just kind of found myself on this path.
But it's interesting now when you tell the story. So, definitely your affinity for conservation, being an advocate, whether it's with the rabbit or whether it's actually we're going to sell some stuff and then, donate the money afterwards. It's interesting because we know that the public school system is crumbling. The private one is promoting a certain type of student who comes out afterwards. And really, it's all these life skills that you learn along the way. I think that are probably the ones that serve you most. From all the women that I've interviewed, it was something that we're doing on the side. It was something they were interested in. That's sort of been the catalyst for where they've actually ended up. And school was just, the basis, the fundamentals of you study this, you go to university, you get a job, just setting the basis. But actually where they've been successful have been with all these little side hustles and side interests that have morphed into something else as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I don't know if you could necessarily teach entrepreneurship, but I think, there is business studies, obviously, but that's very much like, this is what a limited company is, this is what a public company is. I think there's so much inspiration out there, and maybe these kids growing up will see more of it with social media and stuff now. But our school did one cool thing that I guess was a bit innovative at the time, that we had this like enterprise day where I think maybe in year 11, for example, we would we'd go in a team, and the idea was to make a product, whatever that might be, product, service, and then we'd sell it. And there'd be one day where all the school would come around with their money and they could buy stuff. So I think our product was like balloons filled with flour, and we were like with googly eyes on them. We were selling them as stress balls, and then others were doing like helping with stretching and stuff. Like, so it's that was the only thing our school did. But I think if they'd expanded on that, it could have been really cool. Like there's so much that could be done in this space for kids. And I think particularly in England, we have a very risk adverse culture. In America, they like failing is a good thing. They're like, yeah, I wear my business failures like stripes on my arm, like war wounds. But here it's like, we're very, very scared of failure, I think. It's, when I quit my job to run the business, people were kind of scared for me. There were people were supportive, but also a bit like, I still think we were talking about it just before we joined, that I'm getting married this year, and people are so like, congratulations, like so exciting, like it's the biggest thing. All I'm doing is spending lots of money. It's a good thing, but it's all I'm doing is dropping a hell of a lot of money on one weekend, whereas quitting my job to run a business is like, oh, be careful. But I'm like, well, that's an investment. Like, and I don't want to think, obviously I'm getting married, so very exciting, and it's great. But I think we have this weird culture of where we're thinking spending money is a good thing. Like, I'd much rather spend that money on investing into a business than on a wedding. But I've kind of got both, which is good. But it's just a weird thing I've noticed.
Yeah, I think there's comfort in people just, especially here, being safe with things that they know,
Yes.
So marriage is safe, going to university is safe, starting a job and staying there is safe, starting a business, who does that anymore? But you've done that, and hopefully this will be that hitting that 1 million year. And then Lucy, you've now decided to co-found Candid Founders. Just say, well, let me just start another business.
I know.
Where you're helping brands grow in wholesale marketplaces. What was the catalyst for that?
So that started as a YouTube. It started as a podcast, but it was a podcast that we put on YouTube, and then the YouTube has been what's kind of taken off. So we list our products on a wholesale marketplace called Fair. So yeah, if you're listening and you have a product that you could wholesale or do wholesale and you're not on Fair, I actually really recommend it as a platform. It's kind of like the Etsy, but for wholesale. That's the best way of describing it. And it's a massive platform now. It's definitely the biggest wholesale platform in the world. And it's basically just a commission model for getting wholesale sales. But they started about 3.5 years ago, and we joined them when they were quite new into Europe. So we did a lot of growth with them as early adopters and just realizing the opportunity. So we've grown like crazy on that platform. We're now the biggest sock brand in Europe on that platform. We're definitely not the biggest sock brand in Europe, full stop, but on that platform we are. That kind of shows you the level of growth on there. So we actually just started sharing information about them on YouTube. And the main thing was to kind of get retailers to buy from us, because we'd have people being like, what is Fair? I don't get it. So I'd just come on camera and explain what it is and say, this is our socks, here are our sizes. But because Fair was new, from an SEO point of view, lots of people were hitting our channel. It's almost like if you were talking about Amazon before it was a known thing, right? So we started growing the channel and doing more videos. Then I had people coming to me saying, I will pay you to do what you're doing for your business for me. I was like, wow, okay, there's definitely an opportunity here. So we've basically expanded it, and now registered as a second business, and it's a digital course. It's still the YouTube channel, so you can still learn from us. We do videos every week, but it's also an agency. So we do run other people's Fair accounts for them, or I just do consulting. So people will pay me by the hour, and I will come in and look at their business and give them advice. So it's kind of crazy that's now started out of it. It was just one of those things that it was an opportunity that's kind of grown, and whether it will be, I don't know what the future of that one. Maybe it will just trickle along on the side, or maybe it will grow to bigger than Barekind. We're not sure yet. But what I do know is it's amazing having Barekind as basically the case study, because we're showing them, here's our business, it's working, we've tried and tested this. So it's not like just some kind of empty promise. We're actually showing them what's working and what's not. So yes, we found ourselves with the second business we didn't mean to do this, it just kind of happened.
Do you know, it's so interesting. I'm familiar with Fair from previous businesses I've worked for, and It's super easy to onboard, if you have no idea how wholesale works and if you have no capital to invest in trade shows and do all of that. It's
Exactly.
a very good way for you to get in front of customers, a low starting threshold. The fact that you are sharing that information, this is why we love social media, isn't it? It does have its positives of paying it forward and giving the information out there to help people spread their brand and their products and access some customers who are looking for something different in their shops as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And you hit the nail on the head with the whole cost of it, being the commission model that you don't pay unless you make a sale. And it is affordable, like as long as you can build that into your margin, because trade shows are really expensive, and we have started doing them now because it does open you up to another field of buyers that might not be on fair. Typically,
I think you're at that
bigger
scale
retailers,
now where you can actually
we
say,
can
let's
afford
do
it,
it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also, Barekind is certified as Bcorp, so that's a commitment to social and environmental impact. What does this mean for you as a brand, and how do you maintain alignment with the Bcorp values?
Yeah, so yeah, Bcorp was an amazing achievement for us. We got certified in October last year, and I did it because actually a lot of people were asking us, why are you not certified? Like, they were almost surprised that we weren't certified. And in going through the kind of application process, which if you're not aware of it, is a huge questionnaire that you go through in the kind of like the ESG values of your business, ticking off what you do and don't do, and then you have to evidence it to say, yep, I am a living wage employer, or I commit to like carbon emissions and reducing those, and you have to prove every single step. So it's quite a lot of admin to go through. But in going through that questionnaire, because by the way, anyone that's interested in it, you can just go through the questionnaire without paying. You can just sign up and go through it. You don't have to submit. You can just go through the questionnaire and use it as a benchmark for your business, which is how I started. But in going through it, I realized we tick so much of this off already. Like there's nothing new there are obviously steps to get high because it's a point system. So to get more points, there's more stuff that I'm like, yes, I want to implement in the business. So it kind of gives us a benchmark of what we're going to do next, because once you've hit that target, you don't just stop. It's always moved. Sustainability is always going to be happening. But I realized I think I can certify because so much of this that I actually do. So I just went through the process, and it was, I guess, fairly simple for us. It was a lot of admin because I then had to go through and prove all of these things that I'm saying we're doing. Because especially as a smaller business, you're not going to have all the documentation. You're not some big corporate that has to have all these like black and white things in place. We just say, like one of the example I use is, one of the questions that you get a point for is, do you have a breastfeeding policy? And we have no one in the team with kids. We're a young team. We're also completely remote, work from home. So I never would have thought I need to sit down and write a breastfeeding policy. However, our breastfeeding policy would be like, breastfeed whenever you want, whatever suits you. So I was like, great, I'll just put in place a policy. So a lot of it is like policies that you probably wouldn't even thought that you need, that I'm like, yeah, I can absolutely put that in place. And because we're so small and it was me doing it, we're very agile. So I could just say yes to most of it. Whereas bigger companies going through it, a lot of red tape, it would be much harder to change based on the criteria. So yeah, it's awesome. And in terms of like what's come off the back of it, it doesn't necessarily lead to an uplift in sales. And I always say you shouldn't be doing it because you're like trying to get more cash or sales into the business. There's other avenues for that. This is about doing what's right. It's about being recognized for the good stuff that you are already doing. And it's also creating a halo of trust around your brand, because people have heard of Bcorp. They do recognize it now. As I mentioned that we're starting to go to trade shows, we have our Bcorp plaque sitting on our desk at trade shows, and people are coming around, buyers do recognize it now. So it does help open doors. It creates some leverage with bigger brands than us that might listen to us and might collaborate with us because we're both Bcorps, even though they're much bigger than us. So it's that kind of like qualitative stuff that you can't necessarily measure, but I've really noticed it is leveling us up.
Yeah, and just opening yourself up to a different community. You are building a community as conservation advocates, but also having that B Corp stamp of approval does help as well. You've partnered with over 30 animal conservation and rescue charities, which is very impressive already so far, because it's, I think, hard to foster collaboration and find the right partnerships. How are you amplifying your impact through these partnerships as well? Because ultimately you're a business too.
Yeah, and I think the way we've done it, We could have just picked a couple of charities, and I think that would be the obvious approach and definitely the easiest approach, because partnering with that many charities is a lot of work. It's not as easy as just going to a charity website and signing up or emailing someone. A lot of the time, the charities, one, don't have time to kind of, talk business with us, or they don't understand the model of business working with charities, so they'll just say no. So sometimes it's really hard to get the charities on board, and other bigger charities might have more resources, they might have contracts already set up, but we have to have individual contracts with every single charity. So it does create a lot of work. But I would say that's what's unique about us, is because we really want the socks to be very specific to the charity. So if you're buying a turtle sock, it's the Turtle Foundation. Orangutan sock, Orangutan Foundation, etc. So there's loads of charities that are very specific. And in terms of amplifying that impact, in an ideal world, I would have a full FTE working on that side of the business. I want someone that is charity partnerships manager, because that is a full-time job. But I don't have that. It's just me working on the charity partnerships at the moment. So what I'm trying to do is foster stronger relationships with one or two charities at a time. So I'm kind of spotlighting a certain charity, whether I'm visiting them or volunteering with them. We went to Slovakia in January and volunteered with our wolf charity, because it was tracking wolves and collecting samples. And that was amazing. One, it's really cool content. Two, it is, as you mentioned, it's kind of fostering that community of animal advocates. So, we have a Facebook group of Barekind insiders who are our most loyal customers that have all of our socks, and they love getting involved in talking about what socks we're doing next and choosing colors and things like that. But we show them, we send videos being hey guys, we're in Slovakia, this is our wolf charity, this is what they do. And it's just deepening those relationships with our customers as well. So it goes both ways. It's helping the charities and it's getting more involved, but it's also bringing in that loyalty from the customer side of it as well.
Yeah, and sort of that accountability and having a purpose in terms of prioritizing what you're going to go after and focus on. And you've talked about how active you are on social media, both personally and for Barekind. It feels like you're building your personal brand, which is surrounded around your values and what means to you. But how do you, for someone who's listening, how do you use platforms effectively that doesn't come across as if you're trying to sell something, which is most of the time, when you look at someone's Instagram page from a business, you say, oh, is this authentic? Is it not? But in a way to connect with your audience and share your mission and also build those communities, like you said.
Absolutely. And I think we really see it, especially on Instagram and Facebook as a side product, that anything we're posting that's very salesy, unless it's a product launch, people love a product launch. So if there's something new and exciting, that's fine. Even though that's technically salesy, people love that. But if it's generally hey, buy this, it doesn't get engagement. It really doesn't. And I don't think it even really gets sales. I think, the product launches do get sales, but anything super salesy doesn't get sales. Customers are wise these days. They know when they're being sold to, and sometimes they're open to it. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give, and this is, what I have been told, is just make sure you're giving value to your target audience on all the channels that you use, because we don't necessarily use all of our channels, and a lot of our customers sit on Facebook and Instagram, but we're posting a lot about, here's some information about the animals, and here's behind the scenes and what we're up to. And people buy from people. They want to support the person. So if you own a brand and you don't show your face, I know it's uncomfortable for some people. And I would have said previously I didn't like showing my face. I started off by not, but now I'm all over it. We literally use my face everywhere. I lean into it. It works. It really, really works. People want to support entrepreneurs. People want to support the person behind the brand. And hear all about what you're up to, and just feel like they're connecting with you and feel that they are part of your community. So it's being authentic in that way. And another piece of advice I was given, and I think we naturally already lean into this, is just be your authentic self. Don't try and pretend to be someone you're not, because the mask will slip at some point and people will see through it. You don't have to share everything. I don't share a lot about my personal life. I have a separate personal Instagram that's private, but I share a lot about the business. We have a rabbit. I share lots of photos of him. So there is a lot of personal stuff there, And my CEO and my co-founder in Candid Founders is my partner, is my soon-to-be husband. So we share a lot about like what we're up to and things that are going on. So but there is a limit. So we still have those boundaries, but I do think people are nosy at the end of the day. So they want to know what you're up to and what you're like behind the scenes. That stuff, that content does really well for us.
Yeah, and also I think they want to know who's behind the brand. There's some brands that were started years ago, and you sort of want to say, what am I investing in? What am I putting into? What are they actually working on? So it's great to see, that Barekind is making that significant impact in terms of building community activations that matter, and just being authentic to reach even more customers and just grow the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really works. And I had an event just this week, actually. I was on the panel and it was like a Bcorp event, actually. And I had a couple of ladies come up to me afterwards. They were like, I have your socks. It's so exciting to meet you. Like, they were just so happy to like meet me, which is crazy because it's just a sock company. But obviously, because we're putting me behind so much of it, like no one would know. I mean, I guess it's a lot of these bigger companies, and there are some bigger corporations who are starting to bring their founders more into it, even if they're less involved in the business. They're trying to create that founder story that us smaller brands, it's our like superpower. Like, that's why you should lean into it, because these bigger companies don't have that as much. A lot of them are private equity owned now, or maybe it's a public company. So the founder story is much harder for them to create. So lean into it, because it's really, really powerful.
So let's talk about, let's get down to business. So you bootstrapped, starting Barekind, and we've talked about how taking a risk and starting a business is really tough. But, I think if you have a great idea and you're solving an actual real life problem, then go for it. But securing funding is often challenging. And I don't know if that's something, you're looking to raise capital, or you're just continuing to say, well, our revenue will come in and then we reinvest. How has it been in terms of, and what's your approach to raising capital for the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was bootstrapped. So we have taken some funding, and I'll get into that. But yeah, we were bootstrapped. I just put some savings into the business, and I was still working, so that was fine. I had that kind of like safety net that I didn't need it to make money for me. I was just playing around, and I would always recommend that unless you are in the position to just roll the dice and you don't, I don't know, we have a mortgage and stuff, so we do have to be careful. But if you are in the position to take a risk and you have some kind of financial backing, then maybe the right thing for you is to just quit and jump into it. But I was a few years running the business before I quit, and I knew I had some traction. I didn't just quit for nothing. I had small traction, but I still had some traction. So I rolled the dice on that. But I actually did take some investment in 2021 from my university. So very different approach to the like normal investment. Like, it was a much, I don't want to say safer, but like they knew me, I knew them. Like, it was almost like a program. They'd invested they'd given me a grant to start with, and then I moved on to there. Like, it went in stages. So I then went on and I took £50,000 investment from them. Ideally, I wouldn't have wanted that money. I wouldn't have wanted to take investment. And this is something I want to go into, because I firmly believe that just because everyone else is like talking about investment and going for it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, possibly for your business, because you do have to give away a slice of the pie, right? And it might be right for you if your goals are like to grow, like it's being very honest about your goals. If it is to just grow the business as fast as you can and exit, investment's a great way to do that, right? Because you need that fire beneath you. You might also get someone who's, you might get an investor, especially if they're angel or VC, that are very interested in your sector. They have knowledge. Maybe they join your board. So there is definite benefits of doing it. However, I would have ideally liked to take a bank loan. I think people kind of forget about the other funding options. I would have loved to have just taken the bank loan and just paid it off. Not that I actually think my university is a great investor, because all of the money that they earn goes back into funding other students' businesses. So it's an amazing thing to be a part of. But a bank loan is a great option if you can afford it and if you can get the funding. I couldn't get a funding from my bank because it's an e-commerce business. Like, Banks are very risk adverse.
Risk averse, yeah.
Very risk adverse. And there are e-commerce funding options, but they're very expensive. So just kind of be very careful with the funding options. They sound good. They're like, yeah, we'll give you £20,000 and it's, you know, you don't have to pay back too much. But there's a lot of the way they word it. And I always go to my partner on these kind of funding options because he's very into his finance, and his parents are accountants. The way they word them makes them sound better than they are. And then suddenly you'll be slapped with like AER that you didn't even know was in there. So just be very cautious of those e-commerce, easy, fast options because they're very expensive. So ultimately, I wish I could have taken a bank loan, but I didn't. I took this investment. It went straight into paying my supplier bills. Like we desperately needed that money. So it just disappeared like straight away. And we haven't taken any funding since. We've managed to bootstrap. We've managed to reinvest the profits back in. It's hard every year at this time of year because we're so seasonal. So about 70% of our revenue comes in Q4. We're so seasonal. So from a cash flow point of view, that's really hard to manage because we're needing to pay for our Christmas stock like now over the next couple of months, but we don't have the money to do it. So we do have to think about, okay, are we going to get a loan now? Because we've grown a lot, our loan options are much better. And, you know, there's trade loans and there's invoice financing. So there's lots of options out there before you take investment. However, it can be a really awesome thing if that's what you're looking to do with your business, but it's purely dependent on your goals. And I just think it looks very sexy and exciting when someone's raised millions. You're like, oh my God, do I need to raise millions? No, not necessarily. It really depends on what you want to do with your business.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's depending on what your goals are. And like you said, in the beginning, so, you know, the first few years, nobody's, you know, offering out investment or loans to you because you're too small. There's no proof of concept. And let's talk about the challenges that you face, because we've talked about the business growing and all the opportunities and growing your customer base and starting a second hustle now with the wholesale arm and giving that advice. But you must have had your share of hurdles, and you've talked about the inability to pay suppliers. What are the most memorable challenges you've faced so far building the business? And how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I think to add on top of it, it is the cash flow every year. And it just feels like we're in a hamster wheel at this time of year because we're doing everything we possibly can to grow the business. But because we're so seasonal and people aren't really buying socks at this time of year, our wholesale arm of the business is doing pretty well. And we've got a trade show coming up, and because they buy like a couple of months in advance of the busy season, tends to be a bit better for us at this time of year from a wholesale point of view. But the cash flow thing is really hard. And I think all businesses that hold inventory, it's like a big task to kind of make sure you're always in stock of the right things, but not too overstocked because then all your cash is tied up. It's a very, very hard balance to make. And I think we're going to find that hard every year, to be honest. And actually, that was one of the reasons we started Candid Founders, because it was kind of like, can we make another consistent revenue stream there? Because if basically Candid Founders is just funding Barekind stock, that's all it's doing at the moment. We're just putting the money into buying more socks. So that was something we've looked at, is how to kind of flatten the curve and make us less seasonal. I think another challenge that I'm sure a lot of people could relate to, especially if you've got quite a female audience, is just this fluctuation in motivation levels and just, you know, how I'm feeling about the business. And just it's really hard sometimes running a business. And I think especially from the outside, like, listen to this, it probably sounds amazing. Oh, this growth, I work for myself, it's awesome. But like, it is really hard, and you feel like you should be enjoying it all the time because I'm, quote unquote, living the dream, like running my own business. So when you don't love it, it feels harder because I don't love it all the time. Sometimes it's really hard. And I think when you work for someone else, it's easy to complain about, you know, oh, my boss did this and this, and I'm just not enjoying work so much at the moment. But there's almost always an end date to it. Like, you could change jobs, change careers, change bosses. But I feel like I have to love this all the time. And that's like a pressure. And I that's just a feeling I've put on myself. I shouldn't need to love it all the time. And that's something I'm working through. And I'd say having a good psychologist is amazing for this kind of thing. So I have my own psychologist, and actually Andy and I, we've been working together for about a couple of years now, with him on the business. And working with your partner is incredible, but at the same time, it comes with a lot of challenges in itself. because you are together all the time, and you are each other's person, but you're also trying to run a business together. So there's a lot of like pressure on our relationship from that. So we've just started seeing a psychologist like together as well, to try and like, and that's more to like, she's got a business background, so a lot of it is like, what are your goals together, what are you trying to achieve, how do you communicate, how do you set time aside to, you know, work on yourselves and your relationship and set boundaries and all of those like important things. Yeah, just having a good psychologist is everyone needs a good psychologist. It's amazing. It's like working on your
Do you know
brain.
what, Lucy? I think you've developed a high level of self-awareness now early on. And just having interviewed so many women who've scaled, you know, businesses and are actually working with their partners, where their partners maybe have come in later on and said, "Oh, this is interesting. Let me join this as well." And having that, Andy, I love the fact that you divide and conquer, so you don't both go to the same events, basically.
That's a big thing.
So he'll go and do one thing, you go and do the other, and setting those, you know, boundaries for or barriers of, okay, this is now work time, this is business time, and this is now our time as well. Developing that early on, I think, will be important for you. As someone who was married and divorced, I think that that is important. You need to create those. This is now us in our business mode. This is now us in our us mode, and also acknowledge the fact it feels like you want to build a sustainable business. And if you're chasing sustainable growth targets, you'll be fine. Once you start getting into that, we want to now triple our growth and 10x it. I think that the pressures will probably hit you. So you're probably not at that phase now. Now it's all about sustainable growth. And like you said, if the goal was to exit in 3 years, you'd probably be on a different trajectory, because you can see the Maldives or wherever it is you're running away to, or Bali or the Seychelles or Mauritius. But if you're looking to build a sustainable business, then yeah, you don't have to love it every day. It's like everything in life, isn't it? You should acknowledge and embrace whatever phase you're in your business, and it's okay. It's okay for that.
100%. You know, there was one podcast I listened to, and a sentence in that really hit home with me, which was it's because I was like basically saying, why do I not have the motivation? The motivation is like a roller coaster. But this podcast said, it's not motivation that is getting you up and working in your business, it's discipline. And discipline is there when you don't have the motivation. It is there, and it's gonna override that and go and do it when you don't have the motivation. And then once you're doing it and you're in there and you're, you know, solving problems and getting creative, that's when the motivation will come. The motivation happens when you're in it already. So it's the discipline. So, and that, do you know what? Sometimes you just hear something and it just like, it's a light bulb in your brain goes off, that I'm like, no, I don't have to be motivated all the time. Sometimes I need a lie-in, or just lying in bed or just watching TV. That's what my brain wants right now. But the discipline is what will override that and make me know I need to work. I might need to work on the weekends. I might need to say no to doing something fun because I've got to work. So, and that's the sacrifices you make as a business owner as well. It's, you know, and having the discipline to do that.
Exactly. Discipline is what gets me to the gym in the morning.
Exactly. No one wakes up buzzing for that. Your like mammalian brain is like, no, bed is good and comfy, but you will still override that to go to the gym. So it's, I don't know. It seems so obvious, but it really struck a chord for me.
Yeah. So let's talk about your milestones. What are some standout moments for you that you're proud of? Let's embrace the I say Barekind as if it's German. Barekind journey. Barekind's journey. Let's embrace these milestones. What are you proud of?
Yeah, the Bcorp one was a big one, and I won't go into that further, but I think team milestones are really exciting for me, like what we're doing with the team. The team is the biggest it has ever been this summer, which is kind of scary.
How big is your team, Lucy? How big is it?
We'll be at 10, including me and Andy this summer, and we do have some interns in there for the summer, but that's the biggest it's ever been. We're hiring my sister, like, so it's a proper family-run operation now, but that's, you know, when you come on the team call and you see all these faces, and it's like, wow, like we have created this, we've created jobs for people, and I love seeing their growth and excitement, and it's just amazing to me that it's so much more than just me now. And that is always the most exciting part for me. It's also always the hardest bit. Like if we have if we're struggling, we have wages to pay. Like, it's ultimate responsibility is that, and they're always going to be my like responsibilities to make sure that they are okay. And we've had some awesome people on the team over the last few years. We've had people that have come and gone, people that have gone off to grad schemes or back to university and things like that. And every single time the door has been left open. Like, I'm really proud of the fact that we've never burnt bridges with people, and they've always left because they've got a different opportunity. I think they've never left because they don't like their job. It's been they've gone traveling or gone to do a master's. I just love that. I love that we've created this like work ethic in the team, and this our own little mini community that really care about their job. So that's, to me, that's incredible that we've managed to do that. That's the most exciting part for me.
That's brilliant. And it's, 10, we'll be speaking in a few years and you would have expanded your team further. So really good to watch the journey. We've talked about it, throughout the podcast in a way, sort of sprinkling how networking plays such a crucial role in business growth, your own, personal growth. How have you expanded your network, especially within the sustainable fashion industry and beyond? How's that worked out for you so far?
I think LinkedIn is a huge way to kind of really get your voice out there. Not everyone shares stuff on LinkedIn, and I don't know if people find it a bit cringy or they just don't feel like sharing, or I just think it's amazing. And LinkedIn is one of the platforms that still has organic growth. Like, if someone likes my post, that gets shared to their network. So there is a lot of opportunities on there. And again, it's not one of those platforms that you see an uplift in sales. I'm not selling on there, although by nature there'll be people who buy my socks that follow me on LinkedIn. It's about opportunities, and I really see that coming in. I see more people messaging me saying, can you do this, can you come on my podcast, or I saw this. The amount of people that message me with photos being like, I saw your socks in this store. Like, it's people know my name and they know I sell socks, and they think of me when they see my socks. Like, it's incredible. So really sharing a lot on LinkedIn and it's that authenticity of just sharing what's going on. LinkedIn is a weird place at the moment because there's a lot of people there's a lot of bragging, and I'm all for blowing your own trumpet, but there's almost too much bragging. It's very like numbers heavy, and some of it I don't even know if it's true. So I think really staying authentic on LinkedIn and just kind of sharing the highs and the lows. But I also each to their own, but I'm not one of those people that is on there sharing pictures of me crying, being like all the time. Like, business
I
is
don't know,
hard.
Lucy. The fact that if you're crying and you have time to actually take a picture of yourself, something is very wrong.
I know. That's the cynic in me whenever I see those. And I'm like, when I'm crying, that I'm not thinking about taking a picture of myself. So I'm all for sharing the lows, and I will. I mean, LinkedIn is still a highlight reel, but I will, after the fact, be like, yep, this was really hard, and this is how we overcame it. But I'm still, both of us think people want to support and they want to follow winners. So it is very much like a positive thing that we're sharing, and I think that's good. And then and another step along from that is all the events, and this is how we've met. This is why we're talking, because we met at an event, and actually we met at an event where I was on the panel. And I think they must have messaged me on LinkedIn to come onto that panel. So again, it's just getting your name out there and just talking about all the good stuff that you're doing and why you are existing in this industry, what you're an expert, what's your voice, like what are you an expert on? Because people will know me about fair stuff, Bcorp stuff, it's just everything that I share. So, and the events are amazing. And as you said, Andy and I divide and conquer. It's a really good way to even just get out of the house and get out there, meet someone that unlocks an idea. That's all you need to just meet one person that unlocks something in your brain. And I think it's very easy to sit at home because we work from home and just be isolated on our laptops all the time. But when you get out into the world and actually network with like-minded businesses and agencies and whoever it might be, that's when ideas will start coming and things that maybe you haven't thought about something in a certain way. And London is full of e-commerce events. Amazing events. There's so many you could go to.
Do you know, I was listening to Paul Brunson, who's like a relationship expert, and he also has a different, I think, banking background. And then he started and ran one of the biggest matchmaking agencies for people of color in the US. And then obviously he ended up on Married at First Sight. But when he was interviewed, one of the things that he learned, so he managed to be picked up by Oprah, and he was observing Oprah when he went to one of her dinners, and She used to have these dinners where she would invite people who are completely outside of her circle, completely outside. And she'd invite them to have conversations, etc. You've been to probably a few dinners where it's just about the conversations, really. And from that, that's where your next connection will come from. So, really, the moral of the story is your next biggest connection or next step will come from your third weakest link. So someone who you would have not normally connected with before. And that's what LinkedIn is, really. You ended up on the women's domain. Sarah's amazing. There were some great people there. We met as well. It's always not your direct circle, but you taking a leap of faith to say, actually, I'm going to lean into things I'm interested in, but also be open to meeting other people and engaging with a different set of different network that you probably would not have had the opportunity to do so. So it's a really good story, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that, and really noticed that in attending slightly different events as well. Like I go to a few events that are way more corporate. They're more like retailers, so bigger businesses. The topics of conversation aren't always super relevant. Because I remember one of them was a lot about like the data you use in your business, and it was a lot like Just Eat, Deliveroo, like, so the kind of tech stacks that they use would be insane and not super relevant for our business. But in meeting these retailers, you learn so much because they are giants in the industry, but they have been there, done that. So you can learn from them, even if a lot of their stuff isn't super relevant for where I am right now. You can still learn a lot from them. So you're right. If you're meeting with people that aren't in your direct circle or aren't even in your like direct industry, I think you can still learn a lot from them. That's a really cool thought.
Yeah. It's a lot of effort as well, isn't it? Because you're having to step outside of your comfort zone as
it's
well.
not natural to us as humans. We want to stick with what we know.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself out there. Let's talk about mentoring and paying it forward. I think through you starting your second business or second hustle, Candid Founders, you are in a way mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs or helping wholesalers get the leg up that they need. How do you envision giving back to the startup ecosystem?
In the long term, I would love to be in the position where I'm either an angel investor myself or even I just sit on the boards of like young women's businesses and give them advice. Like I guess technically I could do it now because there's always people that are kind of behind you and looking to be where you are today, just as there's loads of businesses in front of me that I have my eyes on that I'm like, yes, you're so inspiring. I want to learn from you. So I would love to pay it backwards and really like look at those businesses behind me and say, this is what I did. And just we really rely, we have an advisory board that is really people that are willing to volunteer their time to kind of not some of them sit on our board every month, but others will just dive in now and then when they have time. But these are, some of them are seasoned experts in their industries that are just willing to, they've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and they're in the position where they're happy to give up some of their time. We reward them handsomely with socks, lots of socks, and they'll give up their time and just look at our board pack and kind of the strategy of our business and give us advice. And I just love the idea that one day I will be expert enough that someone would be like wanting to have me on their board. It would be really cool. And I'd love to, 10, 20, 30 years, be that person that looking at a much younger version of me and be like, that's what I was back in the day. So I'd love to be able to help them progress in their journey.
I think that'll be coming. And when that happens, someone just says, oh, Lucy, I'd like you to advise me on something. Then you've arrived. You're like, oh my God, someone's asking me for advice?
I am the wise owl now. This is my goal.
I am now the wise person that everyone comes to and asks for that. So let's talk about Trailblazer takeaway tips. I always ask our guests to share at the end of the podcast, 3 things that they would like to share for aspiring entrepreneurs or founders or someone who's just navigating their career at the moment. What would you share?
If you can get some kind of therapist or psychologist, even if you don't feel like you need it, it's one of those things. I think it's the gym for your mind. And even someone to work on your goals with, like, maybe it's just a third party that you can be like, this is where I want to be in 3, 5, 10 years. And they kind of work on you and how you're going to get there. It doesn't have to be as deep. Like, therapy isn't all about going into your past and working out who you are today and working on depression or anxiety or trauma or anything like that. It genuinely is like how to improve yourself. So I'd really recommend looking at how you can get that kind of support for you, no matter what stage of your journey you're at, corporate, university, running a business already or want to. So that's number one. Number two is, if you are looking to run a business, or if you're interested in that space, I always say to people that the hardest thing is just starting. Just start playing around. It doesn't have to be that you drop loads of money on buying a bunch of stock. I mean, my journey has been, I started with other products, and now I've landed where I am, and now we've got a second business, and I don't even know which one is going to be the business that we're definitely on in 5 years' time. It doesn't have to be as black and white as, I've got a product idea and that's going to make me millions. Just start playing around. Maybe it's that you're sharing ideas on LinkedIn. Maybe it's you start an Instagram account and taking photos, or a Pinterest. Just start tiny, small things, minimum viable products. Like, just start playing around. It doesn't have to be that you have a fully formed business idea before you start. Just play around. So that's my second thing. And my third thing is really use the networks out there. So if you're not sure of, because I really didn't know where I wanted to be. Like, I was in corporate, I happened to be there. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go work for a charity, start a charity, start a business. I had no idea what I was doing. So I'd really just start, even just listening to podcasts like this, and just start connecting with these people and getting ideas. Try and go to these events. These events, a lot of them are free. So just like go and start meeting people and just talking to them. And I think it's okay to go to an event. And I think it's amazing if someone came up to me in an event like that and said, hey, I work for a bank and I just really don't know what I want to do next, and I'm just exploring. Amazing. You'd be amazed at how many people will talk to you, because people love talking about themselves. So just go and have those conversations. And I think I wish I'd done that. I mean, it was COVID when I was thinking about quitting, but I wish I'd done more of that, of this, like, just diving into these worlds before I'd even step foot in them. It's just about like exploring them. So it's, I think, a really good way of seeing what your next idea could be. And even if you're like already running a business, maybe that's your way of finding someone else. As you said, it's that third connection. What can they bring to you? So those would be my tips.
Lucy, this has been brilliant, amazing. So great to hear your story, your journey. And I'm glad we met at that Women's Domain event. So shout out to Sarah.
Yeah.
Who's, trying to create an amazing community and has some great things coming through. But I think, Barekind selling socks, everyone needs socks, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a purpose behind it. So thank you so much for being authentic, being vulnerable, sharing your story, and just letting everyone know out there that, there are different ways that you can change the trajectory of your life in terms of which direction. It's never too late to start something. And do it with a bit of heart, a bit of soul, and some values and a mission behind it.
Absolutely. Great sum up. No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Amazing. So to everyone, this has been the Trailblazers Experience podcast. 2 things. Tell another woman about the podcast, and please follow, share, subscribe. We can only grow, we can only expand and pay it forward if you join us on the journey as well, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. On that note, thank you.